Hello everybody and welcome to my first YouTube video. So today I'm going to be looking at the astrology surrounding Donald Trump and the 2020 election. So I'm going to be looking at his natal chart, I'm going to be looking at his solar arc directions, his secondary progressions and the transits during the election and see if we can come to some sort of conclusion, see what might come ahead and what might happen during the election. So without further ado, let's crack on with it. Okay, so let's dive in. So before we get to the 2020 election and we start looking at transits and progressions, I always like to go back to the natal chart. So everything goes back to the natal chart, and this is for everybody the snapshot in the skies of when they were born. So I always like to use the sun, the moon, and the ascendant blend. And by now we probably already know the personality of Donald Trump. So it's not surprising to see he has Leo at 29 degrees as ascendant, with Mars conjunct the ascendant. So in Leo ascendant, especially with Mars involved, that's the fire of Leo. It's the bravado. It's the I am here. I am the king, essentially, which is the ruler of the sun. So in a lot of charts, it's usually the ascendant that has more visibility in personality than even the sun. So when we're looking at charts. So looking ahead, we've got the moon in Sagittarius, the sun in Gemini. And interestingly, in Donald Trump's chart, and again going with that confrontational behavior, I see with a lot of charts, and what we've got here is the sun opposite the moon within a degree. So that's quite a tight opposition. So sometimes in charts, and obviously with other things going on, you might see people who are, this is internalized too, but people who are quite confrontational. A good example of this would be Christopher Hitchens, a well-known protagonist and confrontational people. So you definitely see that in Donald Trump's natal chart, and then including the ascendant there, you can see all what's going on. Other interesting things to note about the natal is Donald Trump is definitely known for, let's say, stretching the truth and telling a few porkies from time to time. So natally, I would probably look to his Mercury in Cancer here, which is square Neptune in the second house. So again, this is not always by one aspect, but sometimes Mercury with Neptune, it's that illusion or that trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. Mercury is all about communication. It's all about intellect, how we process things. So, I mean, with the contact of Neptune, I can definitely see maybe, was it 30,000 lies right now and counting. So I definitely see that in the natal aspect. So as we go forward, I'm going to go into the second charts here. So first I'm going to look into, which isn't used that often, but it's solar arc directions. I think secondary progressions usually the most commonly used, but there are a few interesting things here in his solar arc direction. So these are all the planets pushed forward through the charts. And so what's interesting to see here, and when we're talking about the election, November 3rd in 2020, is over here we've got the directed Uranus, which is coming right here on the ascendant. So, I mean, this could mean a number of things. Is it going to mean for him a sense of freedom? I mean, if he loses the election, is this going to mean a new sense of freedom, a new lease of life into his personality? Is this going to free him at all? As we go further on, directed Mercury, which is coming into a T-square or forming a T-square with the nodes. So his nodes there, the south nodes in the fourth house, north node in the 10th house, which he spent the majority of his life in. And even going back to Donald Trump's natal chart, he spent a lot of his life in the public eye. So with the sun conjunct the north node, Uranus up there, he spent a lot of his time in the public eye. In the fourth quadrant here, it's a lot of time with self-realization. It's self-directed. He doesn't have a lot of retrospectiveness here. He doesn't have I don't think a lot of reflection down below the horizon. I don't think he spends a lot of time meditating or thinking or pondering things. A lot of his energy is being converged or pushed up through into the public areas of life. So you can definitely see that. So again, as we look into the directed chart, as again, we're talking about Mercury forming the T-square with the nodes, this could be an issue, especially relating to the 4th and 10th house, And if we're looking at the nodes as a karmic aspect, it could be a sense of all the things that he said, his Mercury's out of bounds, all the things he said maybe coming up to a tight square. Maybe it's a karmic sense that things might be coming to an end for him, or people are sick and tired of the same old with Donald Trump. So as we go forward on, so next into secondary progressions. So secondary progressions are more the internalized feeling of the native. So Donald Trump, this is what's going to be his feelings, what he's going to be thinking probably around the time of the election, which is opposed to transits, which transits are the progression or the real-time movements of the planets, and secondary progressions we're looking here mainly at the progressed sun and the progressed moon. So interestingly, in Donald Trump, secondary progressions, he has just now entered a progressed new moon phase, which I believe came in the September of 2019. So he has spent the good part of 29 years in the area of Leo. So the bravado, the everything that's been about for the last 30 years, I think is coming to an end, because as we see with the new, this was the progressed moon and the sun were together again, I believe, in September of 2019. So he's in this new progressed moon phase right now in Virgo. And Virgo is very different to Leo. So is this going to see a new personality change from Donald Trump? Who knows? Again, this is all internalized, but it's interesting to see here. And especially in the sign of Virgo, it's so much different to Leo. It's more reserved. It's more the practical. It's more health conscious. It's a bit more reserved. So are we looking with the solar arc directions? I mean, are we looking, if this comes into a new phase of life, are we looking at a new phase of life for Donald Trump for the next 30 years? So if he does lose the election, is he coming into a new personality type? Again, everything still relates back to the natal chart, but again, we could be looking at his new internalized sense of his identity, his sun, and his progressed moon of who he is, and maybe some sort of change that's coming up. So is this going to mean he's going to be more reserved? If he does lose the election, is he going to go into something else? Is he going to pull more into the background? Well, we'll see. We'll see with that one. So with the progressed moon in Virgo, just looking in relation to the natal chart, the progressed moon is going to be coming up again, like the solar directed Mercury. It's going to be coming into a T-square with the nodes. Again, the progressed moon, as it comes through and it comes across, it's going to be touching those nodes. And as it goes further on, it's going to be coming up to the square between the natal moon and the sun. So the progressed moon is going to trigger a T-square between the two lights in the natal chart as time moves on past the election. So this might be an emotional difficult time for Donald Trump, and especially if he loses the election. As this goes on and this squares out, this could be a difficult time for him, a difficult period of time, a time of adjustment, a time in this new moon phase where he's planting new seeds, maybe to do something else, to go off and whatever he wants to do when he leaves the White House, if he does lose the election. But this, to me, I mean, personally, it looks like it's pointing this way into this direction. So it's just something interesting to look at with the secondary progressions. And he is definitely in a new time right now, in a progressed new moon phase, and this could be a new direction for Donald Trump. Okay, so next we're going to look into, wrong one, we're going to go into transits. So we're going to select the file here. Okay, so with the transits, we're looking at, again, in the outer wheel, like all the ones we've had progress. The natal is in the side, in the middle. So with the transits, this is what's going to be happening around the time, November 3rd, 2020. This is what's going to be active in the sky. This is what's all going to be coming around. At the beginning of this year, we've just had the two powerhouses of astrology, Pluto and Saturn, that formed a conjunction in the sign of Capricorn. And tying this all together, interesting in the sign of Capricorn, which is relating to governments and structure, we're seeing, I think, around the world now, just things breaking down, things coming ahead. The old structures that are starting to crumble, and everything that Saturn is built or represents, Pluto has come in, and I know it's now separating, but Pluto has come in like a wrecking ball and said, hey, the old structures are coming down, we're ready to build into the new. Now, coming into transits, things start to get interesting around the time of the election. And again, transits, we're looking at active planets and things that are going on that are going to trigger the areas. And you can do charts when you look at transits to the progressions, but right now we're going to stick to the natal chart and look at the transits going around. So there's a few interesting ones here, and for me, some of the most notable ones is that we have transiting Pluto down here, which we just talked about before, in Capricorn, and that is going to be in a tight opposition or within a degree of Donald Trump's natal Saturn. So is that going to be everything that is built up, all the structures? Is that going to be maybe a fear of loss? Because the power of Pluto coming here to hit that hard aspect and to tear things down, is it going to take down what he thinks he's built or done in government, or what he thinks he's believed to have done at this particular time? So this is quite a hard aspect at this point in time. And then not only that, we have transiting Saturn at 26 degrees, and that is, I think it just passed, but it's opposite Venus. So Venus ruling the midheaven up here in Taurus is this, and especially with the impeachment that's been going on, has transiting Saturn come over to Venus, affecting the reputation and his values, his sense of self in Venus, and again ruling the midheaven, how he's seen in public has been damaged in a sense. So all these hard aspects that we're seeing, I think, are definitely going to be affecting him and drawing around the time of the election. Other interesting transits coming round is Jupiter is an interesting transit. So I think it was either when they won the election in 2016 or around the inauguration, you had Jupiter back round here before it curved back in, was in Libra. And I think it was making trine aspects to his natal sun and the North Node. And, any sort of trine, that's going to be a nice Jupiter positive. It's enthusiasm, and it was pushing right into the North Node in the 10th house of public image, career, as he moved into the White House at that point. But now it's coming around, and it's in conjunct, and it's quincunx the sun and the North Node. So it's not having that special relationship it did during 2016 and around the inauguration time. So there might be some discontent there between the planets, and this, could be a bad omen for Donald Trump around the election time. The only saving grace, Jupiter pushing on towards the midheaven trine, but again, that's a few degrees out, so that won't be around the time of the election. So that'll be interesting to see. So there's definitely around here in the fifth house, I mean, a lot of these heavyweight planets, and especially Pluto and Saturn, in some of these oppositions here. 11th house, we're talking about issues around his goals, aspirations, and we've got Pluto coming around. I mean, is that going to be the end of his time there? Is that going to be a difficult period if he loses the election? We'll have to see. So as we go on, I'm just seeing what else we have in this area here. So again, pushing on to the Saturn to Venus, ruling the midheaven. Not an easy time, I think, around the election. Also, relationships. Venus, is that going to affect personal relationships with his wife or whoever it might be? If I feel like there's challenging times ahead. Interestingly, as well, we've got Neptune out here in retrograde here. So Neptune is going to be, 18 degrees, but still, I mean, we're going to be squaring like we did with the solar-directed Mercury and the secondary progressed moon, squaring the nodes up here. We've got now with the transits, Neptune coming round, and that's going to be squaring the nodes right here. So again, is that the sense, and especially with the light of disillusionment, is it going to be maybe a painful time for him? Is it going to be debilitating for him at this point? So for me, it looks like a lot of these transits don't bode well around the election. There are, I mean, you can look a little deeper, and there are a few decent aspects that are looking okay for him. But all in all, a lot of these aspects are looking, and transits are looking fairly. I apologize for some of the breaks in the video. I am using 5-minute incremental videos. So if anyone in YouTube land can give me some helpful tips and hints into making videos, that'll be greatly appreciated. Okay, so as we've been discussing, we're discussing the transits going round, the secondary progressions, the solar arc directions. And for me overall, I'm leaning towards Donald Trump not being re-elected as the next president of the United States. Again, for full disclosure, I'm not his biggest fan, so I've been trying to be as objective as possible, looking at the various directions to his natal chart. Again, this will come down to a number of variables. Who are the DNC going to appoint? Well, the people, but who are they going to do any shenanigans again, like they did last time? I don't see, looking at Joe Biden's chart, I don't see much luck for him. I think Donald Trump would thump Joe Biden in a head-to-head match. In this time of populist feel, and especially the angst and anger within the United States, with us, the working class and middle class, I don't believe going back in time to Joe Biden, all those old ideas or establishment, and especially with Saturn and Pluto knocking down some of the old structures, I just don't see an old establishment type beating Donald Trump. So I think it will take a populist to beat a fake populist. And right now that would look to be like Sanders, who's doing well in the polls. I would have to look at his chart. I don't think we have a perfect time for his natal chart to have a look at. But again, it'll be interesting to see. I don't believe he'll be re-elected. That's going to be my prediction. There are a few, as you go through, I picked out some of the more adverse effects, but I think there are a few things that might go well for Trump, actually. So it all depends on a number of factors, but I think the harder aspects are weighing out. So I would give it a bigger chance on that he won't be re-elected. It's funny, my professor talked about when we looked at Mercury squaring the node. She said, well, if he loses the election, is he even going to leave? Is he going to leave the White House, or is he going to have to be dragged out? So that'll be interesting to see when it comes. And again, for full disclosure, I'm a student of astrology. I'm currently in my courses right now. So I know a lot of astrologers out there have been doing this for a period of years, for a long time. But this is just my take. This is my perspective on where I'm at right now, the level I'm at, and where I see things going. So this is my take. And I don't see Donald Trump being re-elected as the next president. Thank you for watching.